Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, I want to discuss the changes that Final Fantasy 15 has seen from its first demo, episode Duscae, and its 2.0 update, and its second demo, Platinum Demo, which recently just released. Now for those of you looking to get a hold of either of these demos, episode Duscae came out with day one copies of Type 0 HD for the PlayStation 4. Unfortunately, if you weren't able to obtain a day one copy, you're going to have a pretty hard time finding it now, unless you just look on eBay or something like that. The more recent demo, Platinum Demo, can be found on both the PlayStation Network and the Xbox Store simply by going to the download section, looking for Final Fantasy 15 and clicking download demo. So no doubt I can't be the only one who's curious what it is that is different between these two demos. I played episode Duscae for about 12 hours and I played Platinum Demo for about 1. So we're going to be talking about the major differences between the two, anything that's improved, anything that hasn't gotten any better, or anything that's gotten worse. It's going to be a pretty lengthy video, so look to the annotations in the top left hand of the video to skip to any of the aspects you may be more curious about. If you have any questions or further videos you'd like to see regarding the differences between the two demos, be sure to put them in the comment section of the video below as well. On that note, let's get started. Now first up, we should probably talk about the controls, because they have changed quite some bit going from episode Duscae into Platinum Demo. I'm going to put all the controls on the screen right now, at least the ones that I felt were most important, so we can notice some of the key differences between the two demos. Now I will say this, one of the most confusing things right off the bat was that the dodge button currently is the same as the old attack button, so I very often found myself trying to dodge by holding down the attack button and just getting wrecked. But once you get used to it, the controls actually fit on the new demo quite nicely. Having the light lock on be automatic was a definite improvement, and the manual control over your weapons as opposed to manually controlling only your special attacks is definitely something that I personally appreciate more in Platinum Demo. It's still unclear about certain commands that weren't actually present in Platinum Demo. For example, the take cover command, which used to allow you to generate MP a little bit faster, and also the controls for things such as group attacks, since we know those have changed and they're a little bit more involved now. But hopefully that's stuff that we'll be learning more about in the coming months. Another thing to mention is that we finally got to see what it's like to drive a car in Final Fantasy 15, and honestly, it was a little awkward. The new elements such as accelerating, braking, and reversing just didn't seem to fit very well. To note, the deaccelerate and reverse button are on the same button and don't really feel like they function properly. When you deaccelerate, your car will come to a complete halt, but if you continue to hold the button, your car will no longer try to go in reverse. You must then release the button and press it again in order to actually reverse the car. Hopefully that's something they have an easy fix for, and it was honestly one of my bigger complaints about the Platinum Demo, but it should be an easy fix. I'm really hoping. Next up, we'll talk about the user interface. Now, episode Duscae I really appreciated because they had far fewer things on the screen than I felt that we were originally going to have. They had no minimap, weather indications, and they only had the special attack system, not the new weapon system that we'll be talking about in a little bit. The party bars in Platinum Demo are pretty similar to episode Duscae, but they've been shaped up a bit, slightly changed. Also, notifications about mechanics in Platinum Demo, as well as an amount of information available on the screen, is definitely made more visible, with mechanics such as warping and parrying made much more visible. Ultimately, the UI in Platinum Demo has more elements in it, including a minimap and the weather effect, which you don't really get to see too much here, but you can definitely see them in all the recent trailers that we've been seeing of the game since Uncovered for Final Fantasy 15. We could feel like these things just simply weren't ready in episode Duscae, especially the weather, which we know definitely wasn't ready for that. So it really just feels like they plopped a few things back on that just weren't there in episode Duscae, and it doesn't really feel like it's taking up too much of the screen, which is always a big deal for me when it comes to these kind of games. One big thing I'll definitely say is that when we do get to use it a little bit more in depth, the mini-map that's going to be in the top right corner of the screen is going to be a godsend. I definitely feel like we needed a mini-map because I found myself opening my map in episode Duscae over and over again just to see the kind of distance that I'd covered. I'm definitely appreciating that new element as well. Now, the menus themselves have changed greatly too when it comes to the two demos. For example, back in episode Duscae, the old touchpad menu on the PlayStation 4 opened up a menu with items, the ability to change your weapon, group gear, and a mystery selection, which we can only assume was being saved for something like magic or summoning. In Platinum Demo, on the other hand, it's simply a weapon and magic drop-down screen where you can equip your different weapons to different slots. This will probably function a bit differently when you actually have a full party, but it is a much more streamlined system. For the start menu, the other of the two menus that we could touch on top of the live menu that you have during combat, it used to function sort of like a cross between a look at different features of the game and the actual options for the game itself, which to me felt a little bit disjointed. You were looking at your mini-map, you were able to select drive, although you couldn't in the demo, of course. You could return to your last rest point, then there was also the options where you could change things like audio. It just felt like a mishmash of too many different things. Now it seems like the new start menu is strictly a start menu. Resume to game, quit to title, options. No telling if there's going to be more options when it actually comes to the full game, but currently I'm appreciating the simplicity in the two menus that have changed. Now there are some questions because obviously this isn't everything that we're going to be able to do. For example, the group gear is probably still in the game. The ability to use items is probably still in the game. The question is it going to be done through the touchpad menu? Is there going to be some sort of other button we're not aware of that we just can't press simply in Platinum Demo? We don't know the full details yet, but hopefully again we'll be getting those in the near future. Now combat has changed quite a bit in Platinum Demo while still feeling mostly the same, and I think this is mostly for the better. Weapons are now manually selected as opposed to being attached to an individual type of attack. For example, an aerial attack or the initial attack that you execute on a target. That used to be how it worked in episode Duscae. That is no longer how it works here. You simply have the weapon selected and that will determine what attacks you're actually using. It can be changed mid-attack in order to adapt to the situation, and since attacking and dodging are essentially the same and still very simple, it comes down to properly analyzing the situation and using the appropriate weapons depending on if you're an aerial, dodging, going for a certain body part, using magic, any of the situations that you need to adapt to. On top of that, you still do have the menu that allows you to select your weapons and whatnot on the main screen. Now, different attacks still occur depending on which direction you turn the left analog stick, so you can do things such as sweeping attacks, back off, or lunge forward. Now, as you may notice, there is no longer a special attack menu right where your weapons used to be. This is because instead of it being something that you can just manually do whenever you're ready, I was regularly getting things that would pop up on the screen that would let me know when I was ready to do a special attack. A lot of the times, it came at really odd timings and I couldn't really make use of it. Perhaps I don't fully understand the aspects of this combat part, at least in the Platinum Demo, but we'll see as it improves in the future. Another thing is the parry system, which was reworked. We've spoken about that a little bit. The pop-up for parry is much larger than before, and the attack happens much faster, whereas it used to just be like a double white line. Now is actually a giant thing that says defend in the middle of the screen, followed up by the actual attack when you're ready to do the parry. So some of this is good, some of it's not so good. Maybe I just don't fully understand the special attack system just yet, but let's move on. The next piece to talk about that was available in episode Duscae is the Armiger, which used to be a resource that would eat up your MP when you used it. It could only be used at full MP in episode Duscae, and it allowed you to unleash devastating attacks. Special attacks that had you jumping around, shields that would block attacks from enemies even if you weren't actively blocking, teleports on hit, all things that would just make you a monster when it came to episode Duscae. In Platinum Demo, the Armiger definitely feels like it's been toned back a tiny bit. For example, instead of it eating up your MP, it has its own bar that is circular around your weapon choice. When the bar starts filling up, you can activate the Armiger system in order to access a lot of the same skills, but for a much shorter period of time. This is actually a good thing for me because it means that they want you to choose how to use your MP and how to use your Armiger separately from each other instead of involving the two. I know a lot of people would simply Armiger until 0 MP, leave themselves open to attack, and then what would you really do? This makes the choice between dodging and between using the Armiger a little bit more flowing, if that's the right word. Some of the interesting new systems were some of the new weapon types, including magic, that we could check out in Platinum Demo. Now, none of this stuff was available in episode Duscae, so I don't really need to compare it too much, other than mentioning episode Duscae came with the 5 standard weapons as well as the Armiger upgrades, a total of 4 swords, as well as the basic dodging systems, warp strikes, and the special attack the Armiger opened up. When it comes to Final Fantasy 15 for Platinum Demo, the magic and unique new weapons definitely showed us that they are going to have some pretty good choices when it comes to the full game. Now, as young Noctis, you don't get anything serious. You get a few things you can throw that resemble spells, including fireworks and lightning, and then on top of that, you get a little toy sword and a squeaky hammer. By the way, both of which can be upgraded, with the toy sword being upgraded in the living room area, and the squeaky hammer being upgradable in the zone following that one. When you become adult Noctis, you actually get some of the weapons that are very similar, including a short sword and a large sword, plus the fire magic spell, which does leave behind a fire field when cast. Remember, magic is supposed to be affected by the weather in the area, so we are fully expecting things such as, lightning being affected by the water that's coming down, or fire being able to burn over a grassy area. We don't get to see that too well here, but with the fire field left behind, I'm hoping that that is going to be a result that turns in entire prairie maybe into a giant firehouse. Now on top of that, it's important to note that magic actually takes up one of your 4 weapon slots, and, at least in the demo, has limited charges, so you have to use your magic wisely. Make sure it doesn't hit you, and make sure that when you cast it, it actually has some meaning. You don't know when you're going to be getting full charges, at least none of us really know yet, other than the free platforms you can walk over for the sake of these fights. Now, if you warp up to the main building area in the Citadel, you can actually drop down onto a balcony, which will give you 2 new weapons to test out, a hero shield and cross shurikens. The shield has no offensive properties, but boosts your defense to new heights, causing you to outright block attacks from the front instead of dodging them. The cross shuriken has a mix of mid-range attacks as well as some fast combos for staggering opponents. You basically could be pretty far out of range, farther than you could be with the large sword, and still be dealing damage to the Iron Giant with these weapons. It was definitely the coolest feeling weapon of the demo, and the selection just gives you a good idea of what this game is prepared to do. Don't expect it to be something so linear as just a bunch of swords. We can definitely expect some better choices later on. A few things to talk about when it comes to combat and control. The jumping is definitely still awkward, and at some points, especially as young Noctis in the living room, the camera just seems to get caught in everything. Hopefully that's just an issue for this demo and that's not something that's going to be a problem in the full game, but it really did feel like a step back from episode Duscae's camera, but hopefully it's something they're still working on. And that's going to be a wrap for the differences between Platinum Demo and Episode Duscae. Overall, Platinum Demo gave me a good feel, and I generally think it was an improvement over Episode Duscae. The camera is definitely an odd point, and it's unfortunate that the jumping still feels awkward, probably a result of the engine that they're using for the game. That and the car controls are really things that I hope improve before launch, but the combat and UI changes felt much needed and are appreciated. I'd give this demo a solid 8.5 out of 10, and hopefully the game will follow suit. Anyway, thank you for watching, everyone. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And remember, if you have other questions about Final Fantasy 15 and the other content that is coming out towards it, be sure to put it in the comment section of the video below. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video, and until then, take care.